Hello, friends. Happy Thursday, March 11th. Welcome to a Verbal to Visual live stream. Thanks for hanging out today. I'm excited to do some sketchnoting with you, maybe alongside you. I encourage you to grab a sketchbook and draw along with me here, or maybe a tablet if digital is your thing. I'm going to draw out a little welcome scene here, and if you're seeing and hearing me okay, drop a hello in the text chat. Let us know how you're doing today, and maybe what it is that you're working on right now. If there's any focus to your sketchnoting skill building, maybe what you're applying your skills toward, I'd be excited to hear about it. I think I did some troubleshooting with my live streaming setup here that I will be excited to kind of test out or see if I fixed what I think I fixed. If you've been hanging out here, you maybe noticed some echo in previous live streams, and it turned out after digging into kind of some of the detailed settings within the live streaming software that I'm using here called OBS, there was this like miscellaneous / auxiliary audio source that was on by default. And I think that was either like my my laptop, because I'm using a webcam, or maybe even my iPad, since I have that connected too. So that meant that even though from what I'm seeing, I only have my Blue Yeti microphone as an audio source, it turns out there was a second audio source as well, and that was causing some echo to develop over time. But hopefully you're hearing no echo. It's a clear sound. That's my hope for today and for all future live streams. Today's Thursday, March 11th. I feel like this year it was easier to make the transition away from writing 2020 and starting to write 2021. Maybe it was because of like how eager we all were to leave 2020 behind us that helped us to avoid that typical long-standing slip-up of writing the previous year in the first few months as opposed to the new year. Thanks for the hello, John. Appreciate you hanging out. Glad the sound is clear so far today. I wanted to point out a similar structure. Let me bring this welcome sign down a little bit. I shared this at the start of 2 days ago. Our Tuesday live stream, I experimented with this format for the first time, where we kind of had 3 main sections to the live stream. And I'm going to use a similar format today. We're going to start with a little bit of warm up and skill building, then swing into some sketch notes of, today it's going to be a short YouTube video. And then a little bit of a how-to. But unlike Tuesday's live stream, today, like all of these things are going to be connected to a similar theme. And that theme is the title that I gave to this live stream, which is Values and Vision. So how to kind of develop and apply your sketchnoting skills to help you establish your values and your vision and actually live them out. And this could be relevant for you personally, in your own work or life, but particularly for organizations. I think kind of identifying what your values and vision are can be really helpful. And I think it's where visualizing, actually sketching some things out, can play a really helpful and important role. So that's the plan for today. If you're able to say hello and add your commentary, comments, questions into the live text chat. That helps me to know that, at least a few folks are hanging out and engaging here. With that, let's do a little bit of warm up and skill building. Let's fill this section of the screen over here. We're going to focus again on some visual vocabulary building. I feel like this is always a good place to start. There are plenty of other skills to develop as you're working on your sketchnoting, but I think the biggest hurdle for many folks is just getting comfortable drawing and kind of building up a library of icons that you're comfortable breaking out without thinking about them too much. So here, the specific vocabulary we'll focus on will be kind of within this realm of values and vision. So here the question is kind of like, what are some objects, some simple drawings that might be relevant when you're working either individually or with a group around these topics of values and vision? I've got a handful to share with you today, starting with what I think is my favorite within this realm. And that's a compass. So when drawing a compass, I like to draw the center kind of circle of the compass first, then kind of the two pointy parts. Didn't get that quite as straight as I wanted, but that's okay. And then kind of the different directions. I'm going to try that again, a little closer in. Something like that. I like the compass as a metaphor for values. We're going to bring that back in later today. You'll see that in the third part of today's live stream. But as we think about the words and concepts connected to this single visual here, of course it is a compass, so thinking of it as that can be helpful, but also kind of verbs like orient, if you need to orient yourself in a given situation. Also navigate. And even just like direction. So if those are some terms that come up when you're sketchnoting something or working with other people, those are concepts where maybe this visual metaphor, this reference of a real world object of a compass might come in handy. And it might kind of unlock some new ideas potentially, or slightly different way of thinking about things. Welcome to Katie as well. Good morning to you. Glad you enjoy the topic choice for today. Next, another favorite visual of mine connected to these topics is binoculars. So here, kind of drawing the larger side of the binoculars, kind of facing us, and maybe add like kind of a curvature line there to get at the lens. And then I like to draw the kind of connecting piece so that when we draw the rest of the binoculars kind of going back, you can kind of go under that connection and get a little bit of perspective drawing going in there. And then maybe like a little bit there where the person's eyes will actually go. So there we've got some binoculars. As you might guess, that kind of falls more within the realm of thinking about vision as opposed to values, but connected. Let me give myself a little more space. So here, we can label the object itself. Man, sometimes my Apple Pencil doesn't quite connect the way I want, but that's okay. Might need a little more pressure than usual. So we've got binoculars. I think, man, I wonder why. We're going to try. Don't want to get too perfectionist here, but so we've got binoculars. If you're thinking about the future, looking into the distance and toward the future. If you're talking about vision. If you're thinking long term, right? Binoculars aren't about what's right in front of you. They're about what's off in the distance. So that could be a useful reference, useful visual metaphor to bring in. Somewhat related with this next one here. I'm going to go with a magnifying glass. But I'm going to bring in kind of both like the physical magnifying glass, but also the way in which this icon has been used in the digital realm as kind of this zooming in and zooming out tool, because I think both of those are helpful when thinking about values and vision. So here we've got zooming in, zooming out. And I think the two things that are connected to that act of zooming in and zooming out is thinking about getting perspective on an issue, on a problem, on some situation that's in front of you. I also use this icon a lot to represent focus. What is it that we want to focus in on here? A fourth icon here connected to values and vision. Let's draw a map. So when drawing a map, I like to imagine the kind of fold-out map that maybe looks something like this. So kind of representing the folding out, but not cluttering it by trying to draw in those fold lines where those lines exist. But then to help kind of hammer home that this is a map, maybe draw just a simple dot for a starting point, an X for your end point, and then kind of a dotted line to represent the journey that you might take to get from where you are to where you'd like to go. So here we have got ourselves, let's give ourselves a little more space here. We've got a map, of course. What that map represents is that there's some journey that we're going on. So yes, we've got our binoculars. We're looking toward some place in the future, but it's also about like the journey that we go on to get there. There's a journey. There's also likely some sort of a destination that you're working toward. And what I like about kind of a map in particular is that it like brings to mind also the terrain. Like, what is the experience of going on that journey feel and look like? I think those are some helpful connotations. Good morning to Desi also. Hello, Layla. Hello also to June Lee. Thanks for hanging out today. Swinging back maybe to the values piece. I want to bring in an icon that we actually used or came up on Tuesday as well within the realm of health and wellness, but I feel like it can be applied here within the realm of values as well. And that's just a heart with some beating or some engagement lines coming out from it. And the reason I feel like that's a useful association when talking about values and vision is, I think, important in both of those. Whether you're talking about values or vision, there's an emotional component to them. And I think, identifying your values and setting a vision, it's helpful to have that sort of emotional engagement, emotional resonance. So there's some other words here that I think are relevant. Connection. General engagement. I feel like with values and vision, you're like, the goal is to kind of activate both like the head and the heart. You're activating both of those. And then this next one here is kind of related to binoculars, but I think it gets us maybe closer to the human experience of looking in a certain direction, focusing on a certain thing. So we've got kind of this like side view of the eye, and even with like an arrow, you can depict like what it is that we're focusing on, what it is you're looking at. And this is kind of a flexible one where, depending on where that arrow is pointing, how long that arrow is, that in and of itself can kind of become this container where you can add in other details about whatever it is that you're looking at, how far away that thing is, things that might be in the like near ground, middle ground, like longer distance, those sorts of elements. So this one brings up concepts like focus, like literally vision, and even like line of sight. What is it that is actually within your view right now, and what might be like just outside of it if you choose to change your perspective. So maybe perspective is another component here. Pretty good set so far. I think I've got one more that I want to bring in. This next one, we'll bring an actual person in, because kind of with this topic of values and vision, words alone, statements alone don't really mean much. It's more about how identifying your values and vision help you to take action. So I feel like here having someone kind of purposefully moving in a direction. So let's start with that word there, purpose. Maybe action. Embodiment comes to mind. What does it look like to embody the values that you want to live out? And then maybe even like momentum. Because I feel like once you kind of start living out a given value or moving toward a particular vision, that helps you to keep moving in that direction. So here we've got, how many is that? 6? 6 icons. 6 relatively simple drawings that you might add to your visual vocabulary if they're not already a part of it. And maybe in the coming days and the week ahead, look for opportunities to maybe use these within a sketch note. As you're listening to whatever podcast you listen to or reading whatever it is you're reading, maybe even within meetings for work, when these concepts come up, see if you can put these visuals to use. And for folks hanging out in the live text chat today, if you have other favorite concepts or icons connected to this topic of values and vision, drop those in the text chat in case folks want to go a little bit deeper in this direction. As you're doing that, I think I'll go for a little bit more efficiency of space with this diagram here, this overall layout, before we hop over to part 2 of our live stream today. Coming up next will be sketchnoting, some ideas from Simon Sinek, whose YouTube channel kind of helped to inspire this experiment that I'm doing with live streaming throughout the month of March. So we've got those topics there. I'm going to see from a diagram perspective. I think this looks pretty good. I'm going to try to see if I like adding lines to each of those things or if that's an unnecessary addition. I know this is a very nuanced thing that doesn't matter that much. I think I like it with those lines a little bit better. Layla mentions, for vision, I sometimes use a mountain with a flag. Yeah, I like that. Mountain with a flag. I like how that kind of represents to the challenge of working toward a vision. Katie says, some words I've enjoyed sketchnoting that I think fall into this area are boundaries, nice, expansion, alignment, presence, and then more specific value words. Yeah, we're going to get back to value words later today. I like that. There's a great another set that we might try to bring into a future live stream or... those are good ones to work with. I love all those you brought in, Katie. Thank you. All right, so that there kind of constitutes part one of our live stream today. A little bit of warm up and skill building. We can check that one off. I hope you had the chance to draw some things out with me. And maybe keep going. If the suggestions that Layla and Katie dropped in the text chat are resonating with you, keep running with those. For now, though, within our live stream here today, we're going to move on to part two, where we do some sketchnoting of ideas. Today, I'm bringing in ideas from Simon Sinek from his YouTube channel, which I have been watching quite a bit of lately. It's a great compilation of short clips between 2 to 5 minutes that are often pulled from live events or live conversations that he's had that focus on very specific topics. And it was what he's been doing with the cutting down of these short clips from longer live experiences. That's kind of what got me thinking about live streaming to YouTube, and even organizing, eventually we kind of have been landing on this structure of 3 parts to the show, knowing that there are people here who kind of experience this full 90-minute thing, those who enjoy and are able to hang out with us live, but kind of planning for this ability to kind of clip down these different sections and share each of these different sections in individual YouTube videos, which will come out in the future. And that is connected to my plan for paternity leave coming up in April and May. So that's just a little bit of why I've been enjoying Simon Sinek lately, and some connections to this current live streaming experience and experiment that I've been on, that you are a part of right now. The specific video that I wanted to bring in Sketchnote has the title Three Things that make a meaningful vision. I want that 3 to be bigger. That's better. So if you do a quick just YouTube search with that term, Simon Sinek's video will come up, I imagine, before any others. And to start as kind of an organizing or central visual to accompany these three things. And I guess kind of from a sketchnoting perspective, what's nice, even just from the title, we know that like, okay, there's going to be three like main sections of this sketchnote, which I think can just help you organize the page or know what to prepare for. And with the concept of vision, I'm going to pull in one of the icons that we just explored. And that is the icon of the binoculars. I kind of want to make it fairly big though. Some practice drawing circles there. So here we've got those lenses. I think I want to bring them a little bit more together. Give ourselves a little bit more room. Again, we've got that connector piece that goes across like that. Those going off into the distance, kind of like that. Eyepieces like that. Outside of those sloppy circles there, I think that'll work for kind of a central image. Couple details to bring in here. This is a short little video clip and set of ideas that come from Simon Sinek. And early on within this video, he talks about like the term vision and mission statement as potential terms to describe the same thing, but the one that he uses more frequently, even than vision or mission statement, he uses this term just cause. So what's the just cause that you're working toward as an individual, as an organization? What's the vision for the future that you're hoping to bring about with your work? And I think that's kind of maybe something for you to keep in mind as we flesh out these three things that make a meaningful vision. Start thinking about whether it be with your individual work or the company that you work with or for. Do you have a vision statement? And does it meet these three criteria? And if not, like, here's an opportunity to maybe define one. And I'll be sharing both Simon Sinek's Just Cause and also my own Just Cause. I kind of came up with one that I think I like pretty well. So I'll be sharing that after I outline these three pieces here. So the first component required for a meaningful vision. It must be resilient. If you've been following along, you know how much I like to have things kind of center aligned. I've also been enjoying using kind of a highlighter tool to make individual words stand out. I also, wrote that word bigger than some of the surrounding text. So for this, there are kind of three terms here, but also helpful kind of one phrase descriptors, what it means to be resilient. So in this case, the kind of details, what it means to be resilient is that, here I go again, switching tools when I mean to switch color. To be resilient means that it can withstand cultural, political, or technological change. And one thing that I've discovered here, stepping back and talking about sketchnoting process for a second, I like using a slightly different color for that detail. So notice I switched to gray, but there are components of that statement that I want to highlight. So if I use like a blue highlighter, underliner, that works okay, but it's almost a little too dark and it's too much like the other colors that I've used. So I have found recently having a kind of secondary highlighter color. It's a little bit lighter. I enjoy using kind of as an underline tool for specifically that more detailed text. So that's what you see me doing there. And then let's try to add a helpful visual here. And for these ones, I did spend a little bit of time kind of before the live stream thinking about what these visuals might be. And one that came to mind for resilience, I think I did a Google image search to kind of help think through what visual might go along with resilience. And I'll start drawing it. See if you can guess where it's going. I'm going to start with kind of just like a brick road, or you could also think of kind of concrete, like a man-made surface. But what you often see even in something like concrete or man-made, you'll still see a flower or some sort of vegetation kind of peeking through that. Like that concrete surface isn't going to stop nature from doing its thing. It will adapt and kind of, when given the chance, overcome whatever we might throw at it. So I kind of like the connotation there of that type of resilience. So that's one component of a meaningful vision, that it's resilient, can withstand cultural, political, or technological change. A second aspect of a meaningful vision it must be inclusive. A little more space. Let's make that word stand out a little bit. And here the helpful kind of detailed phrase here. When describing your vision, you want the words you choose kind of act as an invitation to those who believe what you believe. So here I like the component of, I guess, both that word invitation, that it's inviting and inspiring, but that also it's kind of focused. It's not for everyone. It's for those who believe what you believe. That's who you want to speak to, which is interesting that, like, it's inclusive for the right people, I guess. Like, there's still a filter involved. So for this one, let's see, to make use of my space here, I think I'll do the image to the left of that detailed text, and kind of focus on that aspect of it being an invitation. Thinking about, kind of like a letter that's being sent. In an actual invitation. How can you, you were invited. How can you craft your vision? How can you describe your vision in a way that's an active invitation to those who believe what you believe? So there are people that you have the opportunity to connect to by the way that you describe your vision. That's the second component. Welcome to Natalka here as well. The tool that I'm using here is an app called Concepts, and I'm using a live streaming software called OBS. The third component of a meaningful vision. Let's fill this space on the right over here. It must be service oriented. In the detailed description here, let's give some breathing room between that phrase and our binoculars. For it to be service-oriented means the primary benefit goes to those other than the contributor. So here the focus is on like who is getting that primary benefit. And I think this is worth pointing out, like when thinking about a company or an organization's vision or mission statement, because it's a company or it's a business, like that maybe also has the component of like needing to make money, and that it can be something that makes money, but the primary benefit of whatever is being offered needs to go to whoever it is you're serving with your work, whatever that company, whatever problem that company is designed to solve. And when I think about something service-oriented, providing benefits to other people, I like to think of approaching your work and the thing that you make or the service that you provide. Think of it as a gift. I should really like the connotation of this. I feel like it brings to mind generosity and like not necessarily like receiving the something in return. It's more about what you're providing for that other person as opposed to what you get back. So that's the third component of a meaningful vision. And I was playing around with, let's see, let me do a little bit of spacing adjustment here, get a little more white space. And while, the type of moving around that you see me doing, sometimes that probably does like get a little too much in the direction of perfectionism with layout. But more often than not, it also has an element of kind of maintaining some white space. White space gives like the page some breathing room. It helps the viewer, whether the viewer is you in the future or someone that you might be sharing your sketch notes with, it helps them kind of take in the page without getting overwhelmed. So that's often why I end up moving things around, is just to maintain some helpful white space. I think here I also want to, I think I want to make the binoculars. I want to try adding some shading, kind of some highlighting to the binoculars. Let's go with the slightly darker one. Just to make this visual stand out a little bit more. That might be too dark. Let's go for slightly lighter color. Since it is kind of, it's the central image. Give it a little bit of kind of pop that makes it maybe stand out from some of those other visuals there. Katie's heading off to a meeting. We'll catch the replay later. Thanks, Katie. I appreciate you hanging out and saying hello. So with these three components of a meaningful vision or a just cause in mind, I also will share here. I'll share at least one way that Simon Sinek has described his just cause. focusing, for now at least, just on the words of that just cause. And I think this is helpful because, like, specific examples of, the thing that you're describing, those are always helpful. It might help you think about what your just cause might be. And starting with, like, the vision piece, the future. Simon has said that his just cause is: imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up inspired, feel safe at work, and return home fulfilled. At the end of the day. So that's a pretty clear vision of a future that Simon's work is geared toward bringing about. A lot of it is around kind of workplace culture and leadership. And what I like about that one is it gives kind of like the full arc of the day, right? So if I were to, spend a little bit more time like sketching out like that specific just cause, I would probably orient it around kind of a full cycle of a day. Kind of, you wake up this way, you have a certain experience at work and a certain feeling when you return home at the end of the day. I'm going pretty small here, so tiny stick figure. If you have a just cause, if you've identified one, maybe with your personal work or the organization, the company that you work for, I would love to hear some examples in the live text chat. And as you're maybe thinking about and writing that down, I'll share with you the current version, or maybe in some ways like a first attempt at me defining my own just cause, specifically with the work here at Verbal to Visual. And I'm going to steal some of the structure that Simon used, specifically like that starting point. Imagine a world in which the vast majority of people had visual thinking skills to turn to when words alone become insufficient. So that's kind of what I think about with the work that I do here, teaching sketchnoting. And I kind of think of visual thinking skills as a broader category, a broader tool set. And sketchnoting kind of fits within there. In a lot of ways, they're the same thing, but I like kind of this picture, imagining a world in which the vast majority of people had visual thinking skills to turn to when words alone become insufficient. Because I feel like the default, for good reason, like the default mode of communication is verbal. That's been like, even though if you think back to like cave drawings and visual communication has been a part of our history for a long period of time, but I like verbal communication, verbal storytelling has kind of deeper roots than maybe visual communication. I think at least there might be some more depth to thinking about that. But I would say that there's something that we miss out on when we don't develop and encourage visual thinking skills, especially, thinking about the typical school experience, kindergarten up through like second, third grade. We are like natural doodlers, but there comes a point when like that skill just kind of drops off. Like we don't encourage it in the way that I think we should, because there are times when we just run circles around whatever thing we're trying to work on or problem we're trying to solve when we just use words. So I want to help bring about a world where more people have these visual thinking skills that they can turn to when words alone become insufficient. So here I kind of think about, as opposed to it being kind of focused on the flow of a person's day. I haven't thought too much about this visual yet, but it's kind of like I'm thinking a little bit like about a individual strengths that I want to support, that I want to help folks develop. Oh, this is going to be real bad. I'm trying to picture like someone, flexing their muscles. But those muscles are kind of equal parts verbal and visual. I guess I want to live in a world where both of those modes of communication, of thinking, are fostered. And if you've been, I guess I'm kind of curious to hear how that hits you as someone watching a video about sketchnoting, about visual thinking. And I don't know, maybe you're kind of somewhat familiar with the broader scope or the things that I've done with verbal to visual. I'm curious to hear if you think that if that just cause kind of resonates with what you've experienced with verbal to visual so far. Because in some ways I feel like I'm workshopping that just cause. So that might be something that you can do if you haven't already, like as a follow-up to hearing about and thinking about seeing me sketch out these 3 things that make a meaningful vision. It must be resilient. And let's do a little bit of kind of quick reflecting on, since we just saw a couple of examples of just causes. Simon's imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up inspired, feel safe at work, and return home fulfilled at the end of the day. My potential just cause, imagine a world in which the vast majority of people had visual thinking skills to turn to when words alone become insufficient. Are those both resilient? Can they withstand cultural, political, or technological change? I think so. The technological piece has been interesting with my just cause because I've been experimenting a lot with different tools for visual thinking. Analog, digital, live streaming across the internet. Kind of no matter what happens, visual skills are always going to be helpful and relevant and useful. Is it inclusive? I think so. Anyone who wants to develop visual thinking skills can hop on this bandwagon. And I think it does, like my just cause, maybe there's that inherent kind of only folks who believe what I believe, that visual thinking skills are valuable, those folks will see this as an invitation, I think. And those who don't think visual thinking skills are valuable, like they wouldn't get that invite, which is okay. And then is it service oriented? The primary benefit goes to those other than the contributor. And that's my hope with my just cause. Even though this is a business, I am hoping to support myself and my family with the work that I do at Verbal to Visual. My hope is that the scales tip more in the favor of the potential gift that I am giving. And in this case, the skills that I am helping others develop through the ways in which I'm exploring sketchnoting myself and teaching it in different formats in different places. So that was kind of fun to talk through and think through. And again, if you've got any comments or reflections on these 3 components, the specific just causes that we looked at, maybe your own just cause to add into this mix, I'd love to hear about it. And I think that's kind of where we'll wrap up this sketch note. Play around with spacing and centering a little bit. Got those examples down there. I'm going to catch up with the text chat here. Drink a little bit more coffee before we hop into the third and final portion of today's live stream. Welcome to Amy. Good to have you again here today, Amy, who says, we have a saying that suggests our just cause. We are all born scientists. Nothing happens until we are recognized as artists. I love it. I love that merging of scientists and artists. And I think you're right. It's implied there. And I imagine that like that overlap between scientist and artist, that we all can live at that intersection, and that like something special happens when we do. Mrs. Sharuk says, imagine a world in which the vast majority of young learners had skills, identify and learn what they need on their own. Yeah, had the skills to identify and learn what they need on their own. Yeah, so I'm hearing things around like developing independent learners. I like that. Susan Byron says, imagine a world in which all beings everywhere are happy and free, and the thoughts, words, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to that happiness and to that freedom for all. Man, that's a great kind of personal mission statement there, Susan. I love that. John says, I think visual keeps our attention focused, while some may get bored of too many words. Yeah. I think when there's too many words, boredom comes in. Also, like getting lost in the weeds, I think is a piece of that too. Amy says, yes, living at that intersection. Love it. Awesome. Well, that constitutes the second section, part 2 of today's live stream. We did some sketchnoting of someone else's ideas. In this case, short little video from Simon Sinek. My hope is that, creating a full visual like this with some engaging things there makes it easier to remember and apply these ideas. Yeah, and helpful to kind of think through them in the way that we did. For part 3 today, in the last 24 minutes of today's live stream, more within the realm of how to sketchnote, I'm going to share a little bit of a template that's connected to the values side of this vision and values conversation that we've been having today. Specifically, I want to bring in something that I've been thinking of as the values compass. So if you were with us at the beginning of today's live stream, you saw that the kind of first icon that I shared when we did some brainstorming of visual vocabulary related to vision and values, the first one that I shared was a compass. And I like, of all of the things that, all of the visuals that we've explored today, I think that's my single most favorite one. So here, I want to share kind of like a visual template, a tool that you might use to help you capture your values, and maybe a reference for you to kind of remind yourself of those values, so that it's not just something you think about one day and like forget about the next. So for this, we're going to start by drawing that compass visual again. I'll leave that title for now, even though we'll play around with spacing a little bit and how big we draw this. So we're going to start with a compass, pointed in a particular direction. But rather than your compass always pointing north, like an actual compass does, for this one we're going to have the compass pointing in the direction of your values. So with it pointing in that particular direction, I'm going to draw kind of a dividing line here to split up the rest of the page into a couple different sections. So we're going to kind of be using more space than we have in some of the previous diagrams and sketch notes that we've made here. And I'll try to, keep resizing things and give the helpful perspective. What I like about this is, you could imagine doing this on a single big page, maybe up on a whiteboard or a chalkboard. And what you do within this section of the page here is identify the values you'd like to embody, bring that word back in again, with your actions. So in turning from a focus on vision to a focus on values, we kind of shift perspective from like the future that we're working toward, coming back to like the actual actions that you take on a regular basis. And with this kind of template that we're going to build out here, you'll see I'm kind of leaving space for you to add in some of these details. And within, let's see, that portion of the page, I think what can be helpful is, in addition to like listing out the words and descriptions of those values, which there's a tool I'm going to describe to help with that piece, the word side of it. I think what can be most helpful is sketching out those values in action. So what does it look like to act out those specific values? I think those are the kind of reminders that might be helpful. And with that, you might enjoy watching the live stream from last Friday. I think the video is called Drawing Difficult Verbs. If you want to get practice drawing people doing different things, go check out that live stream. That'll get your gears turning and get you some practice drawing people doing specific actions. But potentially, like, what I think might be equally helpful, so in addition to drawing out the values that you'd like to embody, what those values look like in action, I intentionally left space on this side of the compass for you to add the opposite values that remind you what to steer clear of. You could also think of this as a, like the opposite of a to-do list is a to-don't list. Sometimes it's more helpful to identify the things that you want to make sure not to do. That can be just as helpful as identifying the things that you do want to do. So maybe I'll add that. Give ourselves some space here. I think, yeah, so I mentioned a to-don't list. I also, in the past, I think I've described this as a stop doing list. It's another way to think of that side of this template here. And to help identify what values you even have to choose from to begin with, rather than just like having to imagine all of those, kind of pull values out of your own memory. There's a resource that I encourage you to check out that is freely available online that is, if you just search values card sort. If you search that term, even just the first part, values card sort, you'll see this PDF that I think it was some researchers at a university developed that's available for free, that has, I don't know, 100, some number of like specific values. Like one of them is, they're in alphabetical order. One of them is like autonomy as a value. And there's like a little bit of a description, like a very short phrase that describes what that value is. So the idea is that, you can print out all of those pages of value cards and like cut them up and then use those to sort and determine which of those are the most important for you. And that's actually an activity. I have them in front of me right now. This is after printing and then like cutting them out. You've got all these individual pieces of paper that make it easy for you to kind of like do this filtering, do that sorting. So you can print all those out and then through this process of selection and elimination, it can be part of that process will probably be a little bit difficult to narrow it down just to a handful, but that's kind of the point. You can kind of sort, group, and pick the most important. So you start with that kind of large list of however many, somewhere around 100, I feel like. I'm trying to see the exact number, but you take all of those, you sort through them, pick out the top 3 to 5. That can give you kind of a starting point for the specific terms and descriptions that then I would encourage you to capture on like a diagram like this, on this single page, so that you have this one reference for the values that you want to embody and what it looks like to actually kind of act out those values, to live out those values. We might run out of time here, but I'll start giving a little bit of an example so that it's not just all kind of abstract and theoretical here. The reason this even came up for me is this was an activity that I did. Not on my own. I actually did it with my wife to help establish our parenting values. My wife is pregnant with twins, due mid-April, and there's a whole lot of things we've been doing to kind of prepare for that. But one of those things was doing this kind of card sort together. And we even had kind of like, it was helpful to have 3 different categories. So we narrowed things down to 5 kind of common parenting values that we wanted to both live out. So kind of joint parenting values. But then we also identified a handful, I think it was 3 each, of like individual values that are specific to each of us in the things that like might be challenging for us individually as parents. So to get, I'll list out the joint parenting values that we kind of landed on, and then maybe I'll try to get to at least one sketch of what that value looks like in action. If we can do that in the last 9 minutes or so of today's live stream. So the 5 that we identified were adventure, romance, humor, flexibility, and mindfulness. And with this, we kind of specifically had in mind like the first year of parenthood. Like, what are the values we want to remind ourselves of during this like space when we're kind of getting used to being parents, because we're not yet. These are our first kids. So I will highlight those words. And kind of, this is going to be somewhat similar to like the last section where we sketchnoted those 3 components of a meaningful vision, where I think what can be helpful is, identifying the word that is the focus of that concept. So that's what I'm doing here. What's the title of it? Then what's like some detailed supporting text, a little supporting phrase, and then what's a sketched visual to actually show that concept in action. So to give ourselves some space here for the purpose of this exercise, maybe I'll just try to do it for that first one of adventure. And what I appreciate about the little values cards is that they have a short little phrase to kind of specify that specific value. So for adventure, it was to have new and exciting experiences. And even though like new parenthood by itself is going to be an adventure, it's going to involve those like new and exciting experiences. The reason that we selected this as a value that we wanted to embody is to maintain like a sense of adventure that is currently in our lives, and not shy away from adventure because we have these 2 kids to take care of as well. So, I mean, we like going on hikes, going camping. So I think for me, what that would look like in action would be both of us even just like getting out and going on hikes together. Like, and by together, I mean like all four of us. So we've got, I think right now we have one of the kind of hiking backpacks for kids. I've never drawn these before, so bear with me as I figure out. I'm trying to picture too, like how high up they are in these kind of hiking packs. I think it's kind of like higher than I first thought. So something like this. I'm doing a real bad job of like representing it, but that's enough to be like, okay, we're gonna put in the extra effort to actually get out and do adventurous things, even in like the first year of parenthood, because we want that to be a part, not only like a part of our own lives still, but a part of our kids' lives. So that is like one specific action that I think would kind of embody that value of adventure. And to just kind of describe the other ones, like romance, even just having like a weekly date night or once every 2 weeks getting out on a date. Humor, laughing about all like the messes that we'll be cleaning up, and enjoying the kind of craziness of parenthood. Flexibility, being willing to like change plans. We're going to be trying to figure out our parenting processes, but I know that what the things we think might work initially, a lot of those things aren't going to work. So we're going to have to change things on the fly. Mindfulness is about kind of constant awareness of what's going on in your head and your heart, kind of listening to both of those things and taking into account what's going on there. So you kind of can imagine, we don't really have time to flesh out all of those, but hopefully you can see where this might go and how it might be helpful to identify like a discrete number of values to keep top of mind with a given vision that you're working toward. And this could be personal, it could be with a partner, it could be a company or organization. Using this activity to both identify a discrete number of values, capture them in one place, and in that one place depict what the actions are that are associated with those values, and maybe the opposite ones as well, so that you know what not to do. With that, I encourage you to take on this activity for yourself. And I hope that you find it valuable to sketch it out and then have this as a reference that maybe you look at once a month, just to remind yourself of the values that you've determined to be important to you. And then maybe once a year, you can revisit that card sort, because at different stages of life, different stages of your business, there might be different value sets that you might like to focus on. So there's some flexibility over time in the values that you choose to focus on, which is a thing that I like about this activity as well. So I'd be curious to hear if you have done any sort of like, if you've done this type of values work, if there was ever a visual component to it, and if you think this specific format for capturing your values using your sketchnoting skills, if that sounds valuable to you, and if you might take on that sort of activity, I'd love to hear about it, and maybe even see how it goes. And with that that piece of being able to see how it goes, I'll give a little shout out to Verbal to Visual. If you enjoy these live streams, you enjoy my approach to sketchnoting, I think you'll really enjoy what's going on inside of Verbal to Visual, where there's a bunch of complete at your own pace online courses to check out. But I think just as valuable, there's a community of sketchnoters from around the globe that are sharing their work, sharing their sketch notes in all sorts of different professions and fields. So that's a fun place to go hang out. It's an online learning community that I enjoy being a part of. So that would be a great place for you to hop in and share what your sketched values compass looks like. There's a link to learn more about Verbal to Visual and to join that community down below this video. And with that, we have completed part 3 of today's live stream. For a little bit of a recap, here are the 3 things that we did today. It's fun. I like being able to kind of zoom out and see what we did. We started with some warm-up, developing some visual vocabulary around values and vision. That was part 1 today. Part 2, we did some sketch notes from Simon Sinek, a video titled 3 Things That Make a Meaningful Vision. We also looked at Simon's Just Cause and my own Just Cause. And then we spent some time exploring this values compass, a little bit of a visual template that you might put into practice yourself to identify and then live out the values that are important to you. In case you kind of are just hopping on to today's live stream, you do have, you can go back and watch this full replay, or you can wait a little bit in the weeks to come. I will be kind of cutting down and publishing short videos that focus on each of these 3 topics. That's kind of my plan with all of these live streams. There will be clips that I'll be publishing about 2 a week until I've shared all of these different primary components of the live streams here. So there will be shorter versions of these coming out in the future if that sounds appealing to you as well. Thank you, Susan, for hanging out. Thanks, John. John says, grateful for allowing others to share your process. I'm going to look into the values card. Yeah, do it. They're useful. With that, I think we will wrap it up for today. If you'd like to kind of keep this going, again, do go check out Verbal to Visual. Consider joining that online learning space. Link down below to that. Also, keep in mind, I will be hosting another live stream tomorrow, Friday, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time, kind of with a similar theme or structure as the one we did last Friday, which was kind of a challenge. I think it was George that mentioned it, described it as Challenge Friday. We're going to do that again tomorrow. Last week, the challenge was drawing difficult verbs. Tomorrow, it's going to be drawing famous faces. Get some practice drawing faces in like a sketch-noted format. So simplified, but we'll draw some famous faces to practice to see if we can make them recognizable still. So that one should be a lot of fun. And like last week, I'll be taking requests of famous people. I think specifically to like famous groups of people. I think that's what we'll do. So join us tomorrow if that sounds interesting. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Hope to see you.